This ball is crushed.
You're listening to the New York Yankees Recaps podcast, where we're talking New York Yankees baseball all season long. Recaps of big games, the best home run calls, trades, rumors, and what's happening down on the farm. Every game, all season long.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the New York Yankees Recaps podcast. Today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2020, and we are in the midst of a pandemic. The season is scheduled to begin in just 15 days, but will there be crowds? Will there be anybody in the seats? Will they delay the beginning of the season? These are the things that are being talked about right now because of this unfortunate outbreak of the coronavirus, which is putting a lot of people in jeopardy. All of Italy is now on lockdown. The state of Washington is now basically on lockdown, and they're planning on possibly having the Mariners play their early season games in Arizona. Interesting. Gary Sanchez is out with the flu. Apparently the way it works is that they test you for the flu, and if you test positive, they just treat you for the flu. It's thought that coronavirus and the flu cannot coexist at the same time. Or if it does, I mean, you're pretty much screwed anyway. So he has the flu. They shut him down. He's going to be out till Friday. Hopefully he'll be feeling better then. You know, he was complaining of back soreness. I mentioned in my game recap yesterday that could have been a symptom of the flu. I know a lot of times the early symptoms include things like back aches, muscle aches, so it would not surprise me if that dull ache that he had was just an early symptom of his illness. So looks like we're going to get Gary Sanchez back. It also looks like we are going to get James Paxton and Giancarlo Stanton back, maybe even ahead of schedule. Still no word on Aaron Judge. He is shut down until March 20th. So look for information around March 21st, that is the first day of spring, to find out whether or not Aaron Judge will be shut down for a longer period of time or whether they're going to start ramping up his baseball activities. I don't know much about stress fractures, but I do know that they can be slow to heal. So I'm a bit worried about Aaron Judge. But even if it is slow to heal, even if it does take a few more weeks, it sounds like it is healing and that they won't need the surgery to remove the entire rib, which is something they do for thoracic outlet syndrome. But Aaron Judge is healing, and I think you can expect him back at the very latest sometime in April, maybe May. You know, he might miss some time, but Aaron Judge, as long as this is his only problem, should be around for the bulk of the season. Let's hope so. So this episode is mostly going to be about the rotation. I'm going to talk about my early impressions of everybody who has pitched so far, how they appear to be working with the new pitching coach, how they're working with backup catcher Kyle Higashioka. Also, today, Deivi Garcia pitches against the Marlins, and that game is televised. I wonder if Don Mattingly's going to be there. Love Donnie Baseball. But I will get back on. I'm going to record about probably 80% of this podcast, and then I'm going to watch the game, and I will give my in-depth thoughts on Deivi Garcia in the last few minutes of this podcast, so I hope you stick around for that. But let's go in order. Let's just start at the top of the rotation and talk about the first impressions Yankees fans are getting of Gerrit Cole. For the most part, he's been as advertised. Fastball has been 97 to 99. Haven't seen any 100s, but it is spring training. Deadly breaking ball. His curve / slurve. It's not really a slider. It's more of a slurve, like a 2 to 7 on a clock kind of bend to it. But he throws it at 86, 87 miles an hour. Deadly breaking ball. Also, he's shown a good changeup. I saw a cutter yesterday. He's thrown big over-top roundhouse curveballs to drop in for first pitch strikes. So he has got the full arsenal of pitches at his disposal. I think he could be even better this year than he was last year when he won 20 games, had a 2.5 ERA, 326 strikeouts. You could see him do better, although I think the Yankees may limit his innings just because their bullpen is so strong. that they don't need to extend him as much as the Astros did. The Astros did not have a great bullpen. So it would not surprise me if the Yankees pull him after 6 1/3, maybe 6 2/3 a lot of times, rather than going, 7 2/3 with Garrett Cole, as he did a lot last season. But so far, so good with Garrett Cole. Let's talk about Masahiro Tanaka. He's been outstanding this spring. He's always outstanding in the spring. He's been working on some new ways to shape his pitches, as I mentioned in a previous podcast. And it sounds like the seams on the ball are back to where they were in 2017. There was a lot of talk last year about how the seams seemed lower on the baseball. And I actually had a chance to hold one of these baseballs from last season. And, they are very low. I mean, they are barely there. So Tanaka wasn't wrong. I'm hoping that he can get that velocity back on his splitter. So far this season, it's been mostly 85, occasionally 86. Back when he was in his heyday, it was more 87, 88. But as the velocity has dropped on his fastball, it's also concurrently dropped on his split finger, as is expected. However, with that velocity dip, that gives hitters an extra second, well, maybe not a second, but an extra fraction of a second to identify the spin. Split-fingered fastballs have kind of a wobble to them. They kind of almost spin like a knuckleball to where they don't really spin the way they come out of your hand. So that might, allow hitters to recognize it a bit more. Again, we're talking a fraction of a second, so only the best hitters are going to be able to identify this pitch and lay off, but he's also focused on the slider and adding other types of break-in pitches to his arsenal. He's obviously getting away from throwing fastballs. He rarely throws any fastballs anymore unless it's to catch a hitter by surprise. You saw him last year a few times in breaking ball counts. Just drop a fastball in there over the outside corner for a called strike 3. So it would not surprise me if he's going more to that strategy, if he even throws his fastball less this year as he gets older. Both Garrett Cole and Masahiro Tanaka have thrown innings to Kyle Higashioka, the Yankees' backup catcher, with Gary Sanchez on the shelf. And Higgy has looked good back there. Sure, he's thrown a couple balls away, but he's also been great at framing the ball, getting that high strike. Also, 3 home runs leading the Yankees this spring. He's got some pop in his bat. Don't sleep on Kyle Higashioka. Another statistical team leader this spring, Jay Happ. 13 innings pitched. He's made 4 starts. He's got a 1.38 ERA. He's 2-0. 16 strikeouts, just 1 walk, 1 home run allowed, 0.62 whip, or walks and hits per innings pitched. Jay Happ seems to be sharp this spring. I mean, he doesn't seem to be. He's very sharp. The question is, can he carry it over to the regular season? So last year obviously was not his best year. He had a miserable year, but his track record has been very good. This is a guy who in 2016 won 20 games, had a 3.13 ERA, was 6th in the Cy Young voting. He's a very good left-handed pitcher. Several years ago, he got with Ray Searage, who's the pitching coach, I think, of Pittsburgh. He may have moved on, but Ray Searage worked with Jay Happ to change his arm angle, and it created just a much higher spin rate on his fastball and more deception on his breaking ball. Now, last year, word around the campfire is that his arm angle was off slightly because his mechanics were kind of out of whack. Now, if you look at September, he actually pitched pretty well. So it seems like he got it together as the season went along, and hopefully he can carry that over. All signs so far are that he's going to step up big. The number 4 man in the rotation, Jordan Montgomery, pitched 4 perfect innings yesterday. So far this spring, 11 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs. He's given up 4 home runs, though a couple of them were in that wind-aided game. 1 walk, also 16 strikeouts. So the same strikeout-to-walk ratio, the astronomical strikeout-to-walk ratio of 16-1 that Jay Happ has. And the thing that's encouraging about Jordan Montgomery is that his fastball has been up. It's been 93, 94 miles an hour. Before he got hurt, he was mostly 89 to 91. You would see him crack 91 occasionally, but mostly he was 89 miles an hour. If he's going to be throwing 93, 94, that curveball becomes even more deadly. I made a prediction this morning when I was recording the pregame of my recaps video that I do for the Deivi Garcia, I was recapping how Jordan Montgomery pitched yesterday, and I made the prediction that he could be a candidate for comeback player of the year. So he barely pitched at all last season after coming back from Tommy John surgery. So I think he's going to be a big factor for the Yankees. His arm should be fresh. He looks great. Let's hope he can keep it up. That brings me to the question that I've heard more times in spring training over the years than any other question. Who is going to be the last man, the number 5 guy in the Yankees rotation? It seems like every year at least one starter is behind and can't start the season on time. And so this year is no different, and the Yankees need to solve that number 5 hole. They're not going to make a trade. Get over any ideas that you have of the Yankees trading for, somebody like Syndergaard or Robbie Ray. The Yankees are going to solve this internally. The early impressions are that Clarke Schmidt and Michael King are the 2 guys to watch out for, with Deivi Garcia, the Yankees' one of their top 3 prospects. In some lists, he's actually behind Clarke Schmidt, but I'll tell you what, I've been more impressed with Deivi Garcia than any of the other 2 guys, but I'll get to that later. So let's talk about Clarke Schmidt first. Clarke Schmidt was the first-round draft pick in 2017. He's got a fastball that is 93, 94. He's got a very good hook. He's a bit polished for a minor leaguer because he was a college pitcher. College pitchers generally come into the minor leagues a bit more polished. That's why you can see him move through the system a bit quicker. You've seen that in the past. Guys like Jabba Chamberlain came up in one season. Ian Kennedy also came up in one season. So the Yankees are not afraid to move up a college pitcher quickly through the system. On other teams, we've even seen guys make their major league debut the year they got drafted out of college. So it would not surprise me if Clarke Schmidt is the guy they go with. Personally, just from watching him this spring, I'm a bit concerned about his mechanics. He seems a bit wild because he flies open with the front side. That's going to also put strain on his shoulder. I know because I did the same thing and it happened to me, and I've seen it happen to a million other guys. You've got to stay closed with that front side as you drive down the mound towards the home plate. The way that they teach you to do it, if you're an over-top pitcher, is that you tuck your front elbow into your ribs and allow that to pull your arm over like a whip directly over top. Jordan Montgomery does this perfect. Go back and watch film of Andy Pettitte. He did it perfect. I know those guys are both lefties, but other guys have done this great too. Look at Phil Hughes. He was great with command. He set the major league record for strikeout to walk ratio because he had a really good tuck on that front side and was able to hit his spots. I don't think that Clarke Schmidt is able to do that consistently yet, and I'd be hesitant to throw him into the rotation unless he can fix that over the next few weeks. As for Michael King, I feel like he has some issues too. He's more of a 3/4 guy. He kind of reminds me of A.J. Burnett. He's also 93, 94 miles an hour with a lot of movement. However, he seems to be struggling early this spring in controlling that movement. You see him missing off the plate inside a lot to right-handed batters. That's because the ball is getting away from him. He seems to be struggling with his release point. Now, he's not walking guys. He's thrown 9 1/3 innings. He's only walked 2 batters, but he's only struck out 4 batters. He's given up 11 hits. He seems to be hitting a lot of bats because he falls behind in the count, so he has to throw that two-seamer right down the middle, and guys are not missing it. So far, though, a 3.86 ERA, 4 earned runs. He's allowed 2 home runs. The good thing with guys who throw with that kind of movement is they're tough to square up. So if I had to award the 5th spot in the rotation to one of the 2 guys out of spring training, just based on what I've seen so far, I might go with Michael King. However, there is another option, Deivi Garcia. So he's going to pitch in about 2 hours. I'm going to turn it on. I'll watch the game. I'll take my notes. I'll cut every pitch from my YouTube videos. And then I'll get back on here and just give you my thoughts after watching his pitches a number of times on how I feel about Deivi Garcia. Is it Deivi or Deivi? I don't know. But I think it's Deivi, actually. I think I've been saying it wrong. I think I've been saying it as Deivi, but I think it's actually Deivi. So if you know, correct me in the comments. So I'm going to watch and analyze everything that he throws and see if he's got an outside shot. Let's go over Deivi Garcia's spring numbers so far. He's a bit behind the other guys. He's only thrown 4 major league innings. He's allowed 3 hits, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned. He has 1 walk and 5 strikeouts, a 188 batting average against, and a 1 whip. So he's got a 6.75 ERA. Obviously, in 4 innings, that's a very small sample size. You can't read too much into it. I'll be interested to see what he does today. Regular hitters, major league hitters, are starting to get more at-bats. And even though the Marlins are barely a major league team, there's going to be some regulars in there. There's going to be some starters that Deivi Garcia is facing. So we'll see how he does against major league hitters. If he can spot his fastball, he's got a very good fastball, 96, 97. He's got a good overhand curveball. His changeup is kind of coming along. It's not there yet. We'll see what he does today. Would not surprise me if he throws a lot of changeups because he's working on it. And if he can get it going and show some results, I'll tell you what, he could win the job. So let's see what happens. I'm going to pause. You're not going to notice. I'm going to start it back up in about 10 seconds, and we'll talk about Deivi Garcia's start and his prospects on making the rotation. Okay, so to my listeners, no time has passed. For me, it's been a few hours. I just watched Deivi Garcia pitch in Florida against the Marlins. His stuff was pretty good, I got to admit. He looked like he was throwing 96, 97. They did not have a radar gun on him, but you saw a lot of late swings. You saw some pop-ups. One thing that I noticed that stood out more than anything, and I had seen this last year when I watched him pitch in the Futures game, is that he really turns his front half when he's pitching. That hides the ball. He kind of keeps the ball at his belt, and then as he lifts his leg to clear the room to drive forward, he brings his hands to the right side of his hip and kind of keeps them low, and then uses his right arm as kind of a whip to throw that ball towards home plate. That's how he generates so much velocity. It looked like occasionally he was landing on his heel, on his left heel. It looked like at times he was throwing across his body. That means that his left foot would end up to the right of his right foot. That kind of thing can cause you to spin on your left side, on your left foot, and drop your arm angle and cause you to miss up into your arm side, which is what happened several times. He was pretty good, but he did have some misses. His curveball was very, very sharp, but the problem was I think it's thrown a bit too slow. So I went back and watched his highlights of the Futures game, and he was throwing about 79 miles an hour on the curveball. In the major leagues, that's not going to cut it. You got to be at 82, 83, 84 to get those swings and misses. And it looked like he was kind of getting guys to maybe take a half swing or lay off. And you could tell that later on in the start, he was making more of a concerted effort to throw kind of a slider, more of a harder breaking pitch. And he actually got Matt Kemp, Major League veteran, to swing through a couple of them. So he has a good breaking ball. I think he's got a couple of different ways that he throws it. And to me, one of them is more of like an eephus pitch, and one of them is more of a wipeout pitch. But the wipeout pitch definitely needs work. I'm not saying it's not a good pitch. I'm just saying he was missing a bit too consistently with it. He was inconsistent with his location, would be a better way to say that. But he does have very, very good stuff, and you can see why they are so high on this kid. I think he's going to be a big arm for the Yankees this season. If you missed the game recap, there is some news and notes. Giancarlo Stanton was back out on the field today taking swings off of Zach Britton. He hit a home run opposite field, so looks like he's getting back into form. And Zach Britton was hit by a line drive from Eric Kratz on his right wrist. Went for x-rays, they were negative, so he's day-to-day. That's it for me. There is another Yankees game tomorrow that is televised. I'm going to try and do a recap of that one. Then Friday night, MLB 20, the show comes out, and we've got a night game. Should be a fun night. Should be a lot of fun stuff on YouTube. Stay tuned. I'll see you next time.